The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com. Welcome, we are back with another live episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 233, and I'm joined by a wonderful guest all the way over from the other side of the pond, from the good old US of A, pro wrestling legend, movie star, TV star, the reinforcer, Andrew Anderson. So, Andrew Anderson, thank you for coming on. How the devil are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. It's been, last time I saw you was February 19th at Cheltenham Town Hall.
Couple of months ago, and that was an awesome show. That was a fantastic show. We're going to be talking all about that, your match, and you're coming back over to the UK, aren't you, in the summer? So we're going to talk about that. But we are live across Facebook, across YouTube, and across Twitch. So if anybody watching live wants to drop in a live question for Andrew Anderson, you can do. Just send us your question using your chosen device. It will ping over to us, and we do our very best to bring every question up on screen and to answer every single one as best we can. But so the last time we did see each other, speak to one another, was a couple of months ago. You rightly mentioned over here in the UK, Cheltenham, not too far from where I live. A great show in the Cheltenham Town Hall. Such a wonderful venue, a really hot crowd. And you had a fantastic match against James Mason, UK legend. So, like I say, that was a really fun day. I know you were over here for a few days. What do you recall about your trip over to Cheltenham then?
Well, James Mason was definitely a bucket list opponent of mine. The man is truly a legend and a class act all the way. We went at it fist and fire, and of course I had to get my cheap shots in, So, but Cheltenham Town Hall, an unbelievably beautiful venue. It's a historic venue, and I think it's a historic landmark, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So it's a beautiful venue, and like I say, to have a wrestling show inside that amazing venue was just amazing. You don't get too many venues like that over in the States, I'm guessing.
Not really. No, you usually get either a really large like arena venue where you get like a high school type of gymnasium, with bleachers and stuff like that, or sometimes smaller halls with lower seating stuff. But that was a very I would say a palatial type of venue. So,
and I've got to ask, like I say, James Mason, a legend of the UK scene, works behind the scenes in WWE UK, the NXT UK setup, and a proper kind of old school British wrestler. I know you're an old school US wrestler. Did your styles? How did your styles kind of mesh on the day? And had you wrestled someone like James before?
Oh yes, I worked a lot of opponents. I wrestled a lot of opponents like James that were very technically sound. I'm more of a brawler. I used to do a lot more when I was younger, as far as more flippy stuff. But now I'm sort of grounded. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But James is not different from the way a lot of American wrestlers and myself we work. We pick a body part. James unfortunately had my I got to tell you, James, my fingers still hurt. He has a habit of working the fingers and the hand. So he picks apart your hand and he works it apart. I mean, he's just a technician, and he tried to disassemble my fingers a few times during that match, and but he's definitely a strategist, and a technically sound, amazing athlete. And of course, he was trained by Bobby Brookside. Robbie Brookside trained him, and
Indeed.
I just ran into Robbie at WrestleMania weekend in Dallas, Texas last week, and it was pretty cool because I've never met Robbie before. And then to finally meet him, and to get he actually saw us sitting at the bar, and he recognized Kevin Sullivan, and him and Kevin Sullivan had almost, I swear to God, John, it was almost a tearful moment. Robbie has such passion in his heart for the Taskmaster, who is also my real life manager, the Devil, Kevin Sullivan. The two of them were the photos I posted on social media of the two of them were just very, very emotional because they, the genuine camaraderie and an admiration is there between the two of them, and it was a really touching moment. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about that, because you've just returned from a very busy weekend over in Dallas. You were there, WrestleCon. I think that's probably the Friday and the Saturday, maybe the Sunday at WrestleCon.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
So a busy weekend for you at your table. Now, I had the privilege of going to WrestleMania 4 years ago when it was in New Orleans, and I went to Wrestle Carnival, two separate dates. A fantastic setup with all the legends, and it gets so busy. What was your experience of WrestleCon this year? Because you got hundreds, thousands of fans dropping through the door throughout the day. Your table must have been super busy. Same for Kevin's. Give us your rundown of your experience in Dallas.
Dallas was tremendous. As you know, I wrestle a lot in Texas. I wrestled for World Class Championship, World Class Wrestling Revolution, which is an offshoot of World Class Championship Wrestling. I also wrestled a long time for SWE Fury. And Texoma Pro, I wrestled a lot for them in the past. So I've been a fixture in Dallas for the past few years, and to be in Dallas and meet a lot of my existing fans and a lot of fans from Europe and all over North America and South America, as well as Asia, was pretty phenomenal. And I think people were ready this year, because last year and when it was in Tampa, it seemed kind of dead from what I saw, because the crowds were not there, because there was still the luminous dark cloud of COVID looming over and the pandemic, and people required to wear a mask and social distance. Couldn't stand next to the wrestlers to take photos. I did another venue last year in Tampa called WrestleStock, which was at a smaller venue, and it was okay, but it wasn't WrestleCon. And from my understanding, is this year was, well, compared to the photos I saw from the previous year, which was the only WrestleCon I haven't been on in a long time. I think in almost 6-7 years. I mean, it was just a tremendous event. The fans came out, and they really spent a lot of money on everybody. They tried to get everybody in. I mean,
hell yeah.
Aldis, another Brit, was there with the former NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
Nick Aldis,
Tim Storm, Booker T, John Moxley, and Ric Flair. I mean, everybody was there. It was a reunion. I got to see some of my good friends, Charles Wright, the Godfather, and D'Lo Brown, and Sonny Ono. And I got to meet Onita, who I never met before, Mr. Onita from FMW. And through my friend.
Look at that. That's the picture there. Fantastic picture.
That was great. And of course, the one-man
gang.
I always have a emotional reunion every time I'm with him, because I've been friends with George for about 20 years, and it's always great to see him and his wife. His wife is always awesome, you know. And then we went out to dinner with Carrie Silken, former owner of Ring of Honor, and Kevin Sullivan, myself. We went a few times to dinner with Carrie. Carrie's a class act, great guy, very knowledgeable about the business, and very knowledgeable about baseball and American football, and pro wrestling is definitely his forte, and the man's a genius. And it was really great seeing everybody. Of course, after hours, everybody went to WrestleMania on Saturday. I stayed at the bar with RVD and Boogeyman and Tommy Rich. Yeah, there you go. Man, you got them down, baby.
I'm organized.
That's my friend. So that
absolutely.
Was it's good.
So I suppose for yourself, Andrew, WrestleCon and events like that, it's great to meet the fans and great for them to meet you. But like I say, catching up with old buddies, catching up with people that you traveled the road with for so many years, that must be the icing on the cake for you.
Oh, listen, I got to see gorgeous Gary Young, Rod Price, two great future Hall of Famers from World Class Championship Wrestling. They were there. I got to hang out again with obviously whenever you hang out with Kevin Sullivan, it's always a blast. I mean, he's like a father figure to me and a mentor, and we were always there. My stem cell physician AJ Caprio was out with us. He came out and he was there, and he was actually with us, and we went to dinner with him one night. And he, from Florida Stem Cells and Integrated Pain Management, he's taking care of a lot of the boys, and it was also great to see a lot of the guys that are there that actually need help from our company that I work for on the side, Integrated Pain Management. A lot of the wrestlers are going to come down and receive some stem cell treatments, like Gangrel. Dave Heath was already there multiple times. Jenny Santana, and Hannibal from Canada, and now we had former New York Jets football player Wesley Walker there, and Tony Richardson. I mean, a lot of athletes, power lifters, down to collegiate wrestlers are coming, and now we have the Killer Bees, Brian Blair and Jim Brunzell are coming down, as well as Greg Gagne, and they're going to get their stem cell treatments, and Shane Douglas from ECW fame, and we're trying to help everybody who's in quite a bit of pain and try to relieve some of that pain. I mean, it worked for me. My shoulder is back, full swing. Had stems put in early December, and
it's really cutting edge technology, isn't it? And like
amazing.
I say, you heard about stem cells maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and now you're hearing that the wrestlers are prolonging their lives, prolonging their careers, and their kind of everyday, enjoyment of life because of this treatment. It's absolutely fantastic.
It's amazing. It's made from the I forgot what it's called, something jelly inside the umbilical cords of C-section babies. So it's nothing from cadavers or anything like that, or anything like that. But it's made actually from the C-section umbilical cord, and that fluid, from what I understand, it helps regenerate cells and even nerve endings to some. Now, from what I understand, if you have arthritis, severe arthritis with bone on bone, it will not regrow tissue. Well, there's no tissue there. So some people, like I like to say, like my knees are shit out of luck. I mean, but it does help alleviate the pain. So.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Kevin Sullivan. You said that he's your real life manager, great friend, mentor, I'm sure. But tell us how you became acquainted with Kevin, and when your kind of relationship on the road started. Then
I met him when I was coming down to do auditions. I like to call them, because I've been on so many acting auditions. When I was trying to get onto WCW's roster in the mid '90s, and I met him, and we were friends from there on in, and then we met up again in the late '90s and early 2000, early '90s, in some tours of Asia and Malaysia, and then in 2011 we were on tours together in Africa with Barbarian, Warlord, Shelton Benjamin, Val Venus, and a bunch of other guys, and it was really good being there with Kevin, but I'm considering the tours were kind of scary because we were held up at gunpoint for a little bit.
Wow.
For 3 weeks. Yeah, we were supposed to do 1 week worth of wrestling. We were there for 3 weeks worth of wrestling because they took our passports. That was kind of a nightmarish situation when you have an AK-47 pointed at you. So Kevin was my roommate as usual. He, because we got along really well. We got on really well from the get-go and for years, and we stayed friends. And then with that, we got involved in a lot of multiple projects together over the years, and we've been doing a lot together. And we resuscitated the Dungeon of Doom with myself and Kevin, and now Ivan Warsaw. Yep, there we are. The Taskmaster and the Purple Haze. I became. I went from the Reinforcer to the Purple Haze. So with Mark Lewin, his permission, his blessings, and his robe. So, which is really cool because Mark Lewin is a legend in the business, and the man's 80-something years old. From what I understand, he still squats 300 pounds and still drinks a fifth of Crown Royal. His father was like that too. His father lived into his 90s and would drink Crown Royal and smoke a doobie here and there. It's just it's in the genes, I guess.
Absolutely. And I just want to bring up this picture because you're coming over to Europe, Romania, RPW, hopefully sometime in the summer. Is that still on the cards? You meant to be coming over here with Kevin in a few months' time. Yep,
and Gianni Valletta was there, and a couple other talented guys are coming in, and it's going to be in July for Romanian Championship Wrestling, Romanian Pro Wrestling, and I'm looking forward to that too. It's right now things are held up because of the political climate, because Romania has taken in so many refugees from the Ukraine. So it was supposed to happen already, but it's been delayed, and we'll see if it goes through. If it doesn't, there's always tomorrow. If you can't do it today, you always do it tomorrow. So just like the tour I'm doing to Cuba, they just allowed pro boxing back into Cuba. So Andrew Anderson will bring pro wrestling back into Cuba very shortly, before you know it. So let's hope political climate. As I'm saying, everything we do a year ago was depending on the pandemic. Now everything we do in Europe and in Asia is all dependent upon this, political outrage of this invasion of the Ukraine by Vladimir Putin. Which, don't worry about the UN condemning him. The reinforcer Andrew Anderson is condemning Vladimir Putin. He's a criminal. He's a war crimes are mounting against him. The war crimes that are mounting against him. I saw footage, and it's just disgusting what he's doing over there. So
it really is. It really is. And our hearts go out to all the Ukrainian civilians trying to flee their country to safety. But I want to bring up one more picture, because we spoke earlier about WPW over here in the UK, Cheltenham, and you were over here against James Mason in February, and you're due back again in June. So just a couple of months around the corner. Now, we mentioned James Mason. There was a little bit of an angle set up after your match with James. We knew there was going to be a tag match happening at their next show, and there we go. There's going to be yourself and Mil Muertes, a legend of the Mexican wrestling scene, against James Mason and another UK legend, Joel Redmond. So that's going to be a great match between legends from both sides of the pond.
I got to tell you that Joel Redmond, pound for pound, is probably the most phenomenal technical wrestler. And I tell you what, I would love to see Joel Redmond in a wrestling match with Charlie Haas, because the two of the best technicians, just pure athletes, wrestling. Joel, I'm not going to try to wrestle you. I'm going to fight you. It's going to be a brawl. It's not going to be a wrestling match. You can do all the holds or all the moves you want at me. It ain't going to work. And I got the best partner ever. I got Mil Muertes, the man of 1,000 deaths, the man of 1,000,000 deaths, masked legend from AAA, from MLW, and from Puerto Rico. He's coming to kick some ass, and we're gonna have a hell of a match. And there's gonna be I'm blessed to share the ring with three phenomenal athletes like Mil Muertes, Joel Redmond, and of course James Mason, who is just they're top notch in my book. So.
Awesome. Yeah, and I can't wait to see you again. And that tag match is going to be amazing.
Matt Jarrett was supposed to be James Mason's partner, but you know what? That little chicken shit, he grew feathers and he ran his ass away, and wound up getting Joel Redmond because he has to have somebody else fight his battles. But that's okay. That's okay.
Do you know what? I don't think we've seen the last of Matt Jarrett, and I think there's a match between Mr. Anderson and Matt Jarrett down the line, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. I am slowly but surely luring him out of mothballs, out of retirement.
Absolutely. Well, we need to take a quick time out because I need to throw a quick sponsor's plug to my sponsor, Andrew Anderson. That's going to be 1310 Apparel, who are the wonderful sponsors of Wrestling with Johners and the Johners Podcasting Network. And if you go over to their store at WrestleMerch Central, you can see their fantastic range of apparel, including their hardcore line, their lucha range of t-shirts, hoodies, beanies, and their more traditional 1310 apparel and four corners goodies. So t-shirts, hoodies, beanies, baseball caps. And if you head over to their Big Cartel store or their 1310 store at WrestleMerch Central, you can see their exclusive Heidi Katrina shirt there, which is out and available now. And as a listener and a viewer of Wrestling with John, you can take advantage of our deal with 1310 Apparel and go to their WrestleMerch Central store at 1310.merch.global and use our discount code 1310WMC to get yourself 10% off at checkout at their WrestleMerch Central store. So support 1310 Apparel and use their discount code 1310WMC. So, Andrew Anderson, it's back to us again. I'm getting good at doing that.
1310 Apparel. You better buy one of their t-shirts. All the fans out there in the UK, buy one of their t-shirts, because if you don't, I'll come back to the UK and punch your mamas in the mouth.
Absolutely. You've heard it here from Andrew Anderson, and I tell you, don't want that to happen. But there we go. I'm sporting the goods. You
better send me a free XXL t-shirt for that.
I'll get in touch with the owner, see what we can do for sure. But you started your career on the East Coast of the New York, New Jersey area. Is that right? I don't want to say how long you've been in the business, but it's a little while now. So tell us kind of roughly how and when you got started then, Andrew.
I think in about a month it'll be 26 years.
Wow.
At the end of the month, I think April 22nd or 23rd, it'll be 26 years in the business. I was a bouncer at a bar, and I was also an investment banker. I worked for Hibbert Brown at the time, which was a small investment banking firm, and then I worked for Payne Weber for a short time. And I was an investment banker. I graduated St. Peter's University, and I went into banking, and I got out of it because I was bouncing on the weekends to meet girls, as every young dumb, full of cum individual does. So,
hell yeah.
and in walks Jimmy Superfly Snuka and Jeff Miller, the Metal Maniac, and I'm throwing somebody out. I start buying them drinks, and then before you know it, Jimmy says, "Brother, I want to talk to you." And next thing I know, I'm with Jimmy Snuka carrying his bags, driving him around. He, brings me to a wrestling school. I met Gino Caruso, Mr. Italy. I met the Kodiak Bear. I met Jerry Fazio and Terry Manton, the Executioners, Rocky Jones, Nikolai Volkov, and I wound up becoming the Siberian Tiger for quite a number of years, and on and off in the late 90s too, on and off depending when I teamed with Nikolai, and and it was great because Boris Zukov retired, so Nikolai needed a tag team partner, and I was his tag team partner.
There we go. So I have to ask you, I mean, did you know much about pro wrestling while you were bouncing before you bumped into Jimmy Snuka? Were you a fan growing up?
Huge fan. Loved it.
Yeah. Tell me about your fandom and your love for wrestling growing up then, and living kind of in the New York, New Jersey area. I'm guessing, I mean, there's a hot, wrestling town. We know that, New York and the East Coast. So did you get to see much live wrestling? But tell us a bit about your fandom.
The first time I've ever seen wrestling was, well, I got to tell you, the first time I've ever encountered professional wrestling was, I was coming home from elementary school, and they had newspapers twined for recycling, and they were tied up with twine, and on the top of the newspapers was a wrestling magazine, and I just remember pulling the magazine out, and it was a bloody face superstar Billy Graham with Bruno Sammartino beating the crap out of him. And I looked at this and I said, wow, that is crazy. I took it home, and it was almost like I had to hide it from my parents. I felt almost like I was looking at pornography. And then all of a sudden, a couple of weeks later, I'm turning the channels, which we had the UHF stations, which weren't the main stations on the regular TV, on the regular dial. You had to go to those alternate stations. And there was, the Olympic Auditorium in Los Angeles, was a wrestler by the name of Greg the Hammer Valentine beating up a guy named Joe Turco. I'll never forget it to the day I live, because it's funny that the first wrestler I ever see is Greg the Hammer Valentine, and Greg the Hammer Valentine wound up going down the road as being almost like a dad to me, and a father figure, and also my tag team partner and opponent many times over the years. So, and then from there, I wound up, basically going to Madison Square Garden. I saw Superstar Billy Graham against Dusty Rhodes in a bull rope match there, and I became an instant Dusty Rhodes and instant Superstar Billy Graham fan. Nobody had like him. Nobody could talk like him or Dusty, so it was like the most magnificent thing, to see. And then I'd watch wrestling at midnight on Channel 9 WOR TV in New York, and it was really cool. And then NWA was also on when cable TV came out. Would have a plethora of wrestling. You'd have world class championship wrestling from Texas. You'd have the Mid South from Louisiana and Mississippi. And so I got to know the Von Erichs, got to know the Junkyard Dog, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Bill Watts. And then, of course, you had the National Wrestling Alliance. You had Georgia Championship Wrestling and Wrestling from the Mid-Atlantic on also, too. So I learned about Ricky Steamboat and everybody, and Ric Flair and the whole crew. But nothing ever mesmerized me more than championship wrestling from Florida, with the greatest voice of pro wrestling to this day, Gordon Soley, God rest his soul, Johnny Weaver, and who else? Who else was there? Dusty Rhodes, Terry Funk, Dory Funk, Barry Windham, Blackjack Mulligan, Brian Blair, the great Kabuki, Kendo Nagasaki, J.J. Dillon. I mean, and you know what the crazy part about this whole thing is, you'd have Mike Rotunda on there, and Angelo Mosca, the superstar Billy Graham, Kevin Sullivan, obviously with his Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
and the insanity, that it brought about was just tremendous. To think that I would eventually become one of the Army of Darkness, the Dungeon of Doom, one of Kevin Sullivan's disciples, so to speak. And I would become such close friends with James J. Dillon, who is a very good friend of mine, and Brian Blair, who is an extremely dear friend of mine, and to be friends with Barry Windham, who I love and think he's the greatest babyface of all time, and to be friends with these people, to be at the Hall of Fame dinner when Greg the Hammer Valentine was inducted to the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Wichita Falls, Texas. When Greg was inducted by Terry Funk, I sat on the table with Terry Funk, Wild Bill Irwin, and Stan Hansen, Terry Funk's wife, who also passed away not too long ago, a few years back, and the mayor of Wichita Falls, and everything was really cool. It was a surreal moment because here I am, I'm me, and I have these idols, and I'm sitting on a table, sharing a table with them, and it was just an amazing moment. And of course, you had Greg with me too, and Greg got inducted, and it was just to be there, center stage for that was really great. So it's I am living the dream, and for the most part, when they say you should never meet your idols, the people who you idolize, so far pretty much all of them have fallen into place as being wonderful people. From Jimmy Snuka on. With all the tragedy and misgivings that happened through his life, and everything, he was always pops to me. Jimmy was always a good man. I don't know what happened with that whole situation. I don't want to know. I don't care. All I know is the man that I knew, and Jimmy person. So.
Yeah, and I respect that. And I mean, just going back to them early days, 25, 26 years ago, and congratulations on the fantastic career. But them first couple of years for yourself, then, Andrew, I mean, it was a different era, wasn't it? I know we're talking the mid to late 90s, but it was still the era of the larger-than-life character, the big guys, the big brawling wrestlers, which is so different to the wrestling landscape we have now. And I mentioned that you're more of an old school wrestler, but you grew up, or you came into the business in an era where there were still big men and there was still kayfabe, and that you had these big larger than life characters, didn't you?
I was taught at an early age that if you went out partying and drinking with the boys and you got into a bar fight, you better win that fight.
You better damn win. Yeah,
you were protecting the business. So, I mean, that's the era that I was. It was the era of kayfabe, and kayfabe dissolved halfway through my career. Not even halfway, a lot more than that. I think in like 1999 to 2000, it just Vince McMahon signed that deal with the believe it or not, New Jersey is Mayor Christy Whitman in the state that I live in. The became Pro Wrestling Entertainment to deregulate it with taxation and stuff, that it wasn't a sport. And, it just changed. And then, state athletic commissions went down the hill in a lot of states. And, some states still have it. Everybody and their mother wanted to become a pro wrestler. And it seems these days everybody is. There's so many. I mean, look, I love the business and I love wrestling and that, but you can't keep up with the amount of wrestlers that are out there anymore.
Yeah.
You can't. It's just names. These names, I don't even recognize them. I can't. The indie scene alone is just massive. It's a massive, which is why I don't understand why the WWE just doesn't do something to milk the indie scene for the talent like they used to. They started doing that for a while. From what I understand, they're not doing it anymore.
Yeah, I know they're after more kind of like collegiate athletes.
Yeah.
And people from different sporting backgrounds, which is great because they've had success with that in the past. But people with that knowledge of the indie scene and that have an element of knowledge of how to work, they still have to kind of take advantage of that once in a while, I believe, to have that true mix of different athletes in the business. What do you think?
I believe I agree. I agree that there should be a mix of everything. I mean, I wrestled in high school and college. I played football in high school and in college rather. But it was really the wrestling which was my forte. And I believe that everybody should have some kind of wrestling fundamental background in the business. But there's to me it's like everybody now wants to wear kick pads and be an MMA fighter. If you want to be an MMA fighter, go into the MMA. Go to UFC. Do mixed martial arts. pro wrestling should look like pro wrestlers should look like wrestlers. I still believe in boots, knee pads, trunks, not necessarily knee pads, but look like a wrestler. Go out there, present yourself as a wrestler. And I got to tell you about World Pro Wrestling and World Pro Wrestling in that locker room. When I was in that locker room, I was beyond impressed because it looked like a pro wrestling locker room. It had larger than life guys. You had Joel Redmond, who's in great shape, big guy. You had Gianni Valletta, who's a big guy. Reminds me of a cross between Bruiser Brody and Hercules Hernandez.
Yeah.
James looks like a wrestler. You had all these guys that look like wrestlers in there. Red Scorpion, from Italy. He phenomenal shape. You know what I'm saying? He's a smaller guy, but he's one of the best out there. I mean, it was really, really, really great, seeing those guys and sharing a locker room with them. And I'm going to be sharing it again with them. And I really want to thank World Pro Wrestling for having me back. And, it's just a really cool thing. So Hardeep Roy and his wife, Kirsten Verdi, they really took care of me when I was down there. They're some of the sponsors for World Pro Wrestling, and it was really an honor being there and taking me out to dinner and doing my laundry and everything. So I was kind of, So me and Tajiri were pampered.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt Jarrett's actually watching the show, and he sent a little message saying, "Hello, my good friend." So thank you for watching, Matt, and we can't wait to see you again in June.
I don't think I'm going to get to kick Matt's ass in June because he went.
Like I say, I still don't think we've seen the end of that story. But so working in the New Jersey area predominantly in your first few years, what was that like? Because just on the surface of things, it sounds like a really tough area to break into, a tough environment. Tell us about breaking in that area.
The greatest wrestlers in the scene broke out from this area: Homicide, Low Key, the Hit Squad, Dan Math and Monster Mac. Crowbar, Ace Darling, just unbelievable athletes came out of this, and unbelievable talented guys came out. You have a lot of great companies working in New Jersey, in the New York area. It's a really, really, it was a lot of fun breaking in because I made a lot of friends, that Charlie Haas and his brother Russ, they came in, they out of Seton Hall University. They're originally from Oklahoma, but went to Seton Hall University in New Jersey. And so, I mean, it was a great experience. I'm working with guys like promoters like Gino Caruso, Dennis Corluzzo, Tommy Fierro, Jersey Championship Wrestling. I mean, a lot of people. It was a great time, for everybody. The Doghouse in New York, and it was just great. It was a great time to be in the business. And of course, you had in Pennsylvania, you had a world WXW with Alpha and Alpha Senior, and it was just great, being a part of all that. And you had a promoter in Pennsylvania, Blaine DeSantis, who worked a lot with us and breaking in the business. And I remember being on a show with a young Christian and Edge, Christian Cage and Stetson Hardcastle. That's what they. So I was on the show with them, and I wrestled against. I think I wrestled Gino Caruso that night, Mr. Italy. It was early on in my career. It was a really good time. Really good. It was a really good time. You had really good guys out there like Mr. Ulala. A lot of underrated talent. Some that still wrestle today. Some that have not lasted. But it was just it was a hotbed of wrestling, and it is once again. And I got to give a big shout out to what I think is the best big man in the business, is Wrecking Ball Legursky, part of the fixers in the NWA. I mean, I really think the guy is great, and I really love what he does. And I wrestled him a few times, and he hasn't beat me yet, but it was great. It's great seeing him, make it to a degree in this business, and it seems like he's got a long way to go. He's very young, he's very strong, very big, and I'm proud of him. So
yeah, really, absolutely. So. I just want to touch on some of your accomplishments then, if we can, in the wrestling business, because now correct me if I've got anything wrong here, but I think you were the first ever Jersey Championship Wrestling heavyweight champion back in the year 2000. Of course, Jersey Championship Wrestling is the forerunner to what we now know nowadays as GCW, Game Changer Wrestling. Yep. So a long legacy of champions, and you were the first one, and of course a 4-time ECPW, East Coast Pro Wrestling heavyweight champion, 4-time champion. So some amazing accomplishments over there on the East Coast and New Jersey. You must be very proud of some of the championships you've picked up.
Listen, it's been it's been a long career, and there have been so many belts I can't even remember how many of them I had. I had at least probably about 40 titles, at least 40 titles.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, at least 40 titles. I mean, it's just been on and off. A lot of them were tag team titles. Some of them, unfortunately, you win a title for a company that wants to crown a champion, and then all of a sudden they disappear. And it's been one of those things. Some people will say, "Well, you never lost that title." Well, it really wasn't a title if there wasn't a company to back it up after a while. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you got to look at it that way. But if carrying a physical belt, yeah, probably closer to 40 times. I had one of the belts that I really relished was the Louisiana heavyweight title that I won in Gulf State Wrestling in Louisiana. That was one of my favorite title runs in recent years, and that was a lot of fun. I love working in Louisiana. I miss my Louisiana family, my friends, and everything down there. So hopefully I'll be back down there soon. Working a lot on the East Coast, and there's some great companies out here to work for, like ISPW in New Jersey, one of the biggest companies that's come back after a long haul, and really putting wrestling on the map. May 7th, they're having at the Menon Arena in Morristown, New Jersey. They're having the 80s WrestleCon. A lot of people are going to be there from Jake the Snake to Jesse Ventura, and the Haku and Tom of the Islanders. It's going to be a really great event to be at. I'm going to be there signing, and but it's really cool, and that they're really doing great. So ISPW, hats off to them. Of course, there's always the company where I started working for, East Coast Pro Wrestling, with Mr. Italy, Gino Caruso. I love working for them, and they have Adrenaline TV tapings on ecpw1.com, or go to the ECPW YouTube channel. You can see them there, and I also have my own fledgling YouTube channel, which I'm not too technically inclined, so I have somebody gathering a lot of footage. I have a lot of footage on VHS and stuff like that too that has to be converted.
There's some great matches on there, some awesome matches with some legends of the business. Definitely recommend checking that out for sure.
There's a lot more from that you would not believe the amount. I don't have access to all of it, so I have to get access to it or pull it off of other channels on YouTube and see if I can put them on mine. But there's a lot. You're talking about almost 25 years, 26 years worth of wrestling. Yeah. I like to say 24 years. The first 2 years of my career were more stalling. It was more matches here and there, trying to get booked on stuff. I'm trying to expand and make my name. So, but solid. It's been a solid 24 years of wrestling. That a lot of people say, "Oh, I've wrestled for 30 years. I run the ring for 30." He had breaks. I haven't had a break. My biggest break was when I blew my knee out, and I had 4 months. And then in the state of New York, I put the mask on and wrestled as the Masked Superstar, Billy Eadie's blessing. And I would wrestle as the Masked Superstar in 2008, 2009, because I was they would call me AMA Anderson, against medical advice. So because I just had my ACL, cadaver tendon put in. So that was about a good 4 months that I was out of the business for a little bit. And then during COVID was about 3-4 months. But thank God to Tom Lance and SWE Fury and running up in Texas, they kept things going on, and they kept shit moving. And I'm wearing another great company that I work for right here. Is look at this side right here, Legends of Wrestling. The Legends of Wrestling with Brian Knobs and his company. He owns that company called Legends of Wrestling. They did City Field, which used to be which was the replaced the old Shea Stadium and City Field in New York, where the New York Mets play. They drew almost 16,000 people.
That's impressive.
The main event was Scott Steiner versus RVD, and Bill Goldberg came out and speared Scott Steiner, and then the Good Brothers came in and did a run in there with the tag team main event, and they came out. Amazing. I wrestled against. I teamed with Greg Valentine, managed myself, and who was it? Flex Armstrong against another team managed by John Senior and his tag team that he had. I don't remember who they were, but we had a match. It was great seeing yourself on that giant screen in the middle of the stadium.
Hell yeah.
So that was a really cool time. And Brian Knobs did a hell of a job, and he's run a lot of really good events out there, and he's coming back, and hopefully he's healthy, and get well, Brian. I love you, man. So
absolutely.
And fuck you to Jerry Sags. I love Jerry. So so he disappointed me. But I lost a drinking buddy.
Tell us about your acting career then, because I'm going to bring up a picture here from when you were part of the wrestler. Now, what was your involvement in the rest of the movie? I mean, for my money, probably the greatest wrestling movie or movie about pro wrestling in the history. It was very, very gritty, very, very real, sometimes hard to watch, but it really did show kind of a true life reflection of what it's like to be a pro wrestler, not necessarily at the end of his days, but kind of at the end of his glory years, trying to reclaim and chase his glory years down again.
Well,
But
I had the
what was your involvement?
I have the unique opportunity of helping go over some stuff with Mickey Rourke and helping him train to get him ready. I mean, most of it was really done by Alpha Senior and at WXW in Hazleton, Pennsylvania, and I guess he came up from Florida. I think he did a phenomenal job. I know that Mickey Rourke also had a Israeli Mossad guy training him for physical conditioning for it. You know, Mickey always said to me, he goes, you know, it's not the easiest thing going from boxing to wrestling, but then I did it. I boxed for a number of years. So look at my nose, has no cartilage in it, you know. So I boxed for a number of years. So it was easy for me to click with Mickey on talking about that. And funny you should mention the wrestler, because I was just with Ernest Miller, who played the Sheik in that movie, and Ernest, the Ayatollah, and Ernest Miller and I were just talking about having some kind of a wrestler reunion. So, you know, but that was really cool. But that opened up a lot of doors for me. I played myself in the film, and I went up, you know, for 30 seconds of fame. I like to say, call myself to piss off fans, saying I'm the wrestler, I'm the real wrestler, I'm the star of the movie, The Wrestler. I was the one who made that film, you know. But it's just that's part of what, you know. So actually, at one point, I heard that a couple of people, I'm not going to say who they are, but from other companies here in New Jersey, got their nose out of whack that I used that to catapult my career. They got themselves pissed off. I said, well, I thought of it first. You guys didn't, huh? I made the cut. You guys didn't, you know. But I don't care if they, you know. I confronted one of them a couple of days ago at WrestleCon, but I'm not going to say who it is. But he's a turd. But anyway, besides the point, I took the ball and ran with it, so to speak, you know. And I wound up getting booked for a lot of things, endorsements like Doritos commercials, Skittles. Yeah, there we are. Look at that, Skittles. Yep. And a lot of different pharmaceutical ads. I know I'm a wrestler. Figures it'll be pharmaceutical, right? No, no. I did a lot of different pharmaceutical. One of them was a gout medicine, and I had to play a masked wrestler with a violin, playing in a symphony that couldn't wrestle anymore, but became a violinist because I couldn't wrestle because I had gout in this commercial. So, but it was pretty funny. I played a luchador, so you know. But it was pretty cool. So.
Gotham as well. I mean,
pretty
much everybody's seen or is aware of the Batman spin-off Gotham. Tell us about your involvement. How did you get involved with Gotham, and tell us about that?
I have a wonderful team. I have a management and agent team. My agent at the time, Roger Paul, was great. You know, he was my agent at the time. He wound up getting me some bucket list things, and of course, my management team of Pat Horgan and Kelly Alnafi and her husband Mike. They helped me out a lot. Team Anderson, like they used to call it, when they still do. We got a lot of stuff with as far as acting goes. I was on Sneaky Pete. I played an arms dealer on Sneaky Pete. FBI's Most Wanted, CSI. God, there's a lot of TV series, but Gotham was the most high profile of them all. Because I played one of the Gotham villains, one of the biker demons, Gotham. So, and I was one of the first persons to be to actually have an encounter with the Catwoman on a physical level. Selena Kyle, the Catwoman, used her whip for the first time on the series and pulled my sawed-off shotgun out of my hand, and it was pretty cool. And my hair was spiked up 10 feet high. You know, I looked more like Johnny Bravo from the American cartoon Johnny Bravo. All I have to do is go, "Hello, baby. I got to be Johnny Bravo." That's all I could have done. Say, "Hey, baby." So
that was impressive hair. Yeah, I've seen the clip. Absolutely. But what about the future? I mean, acting, you're obviously very passionate about wrestling, very passionate about acting. You're looking to do more roles in the future, and anything in the pipeline?
Absolutely. Right now, I got another TV series that I'm working on right now. I can't say, I got a little bit of a gag order on it, but as they do. But something big, and I'll just give you this: HBO. That's all I will tell you.
Nice. Very
And
nice. So we look forward to that.
yeah, I just finished a couple of scenes for a couple of smaller movies that are coming up. I just recently spoke to a company just now, signed, got paperwork to sign and look over for an action figure deal, which is really cool. So now I can, when I get that made, I can legally play with myself in public.
That's awesome. That really is awesome. And I've got to talk about the being a member of the Cauliflower Alley Club, which is a renowned club for pro wrestlers in the US. It's kind of like a Hall of Fame of sorts, isn't it? But
Not just the US thing, it's international. Anybody
right.
is welcome from any. I would love to actually extend an olive branch to James Mason to come down and become a member, because I think he'd be a valued member, and I think he would do great giving a seminar and teaching a class over there to some of the kids, the younger guys and the more experienced guys as well, because I mean James is a great talent. I would love him to come down and this September to the Cauliflower Alley Club, as well as hopefully Robbie Brookside will be there also. I hopefully he comes too, and it would just be something great. I know that William Regal was invited also. I know that now he's working for AEW. Maybe he will be there, because there was a large AEW contingent there last time.
Absolutely. What is being part of the Cauliflower Alley Club mean then? What does it entitle you to do? And obviously you had the ceremony. You was obviously inducted into the club. That must have been a great moment for you. Fantastic experience and a great honor as well.
It was in 2019. It was a career high.
Yeah.
Brian Blair, Carl Lauer, and Morgan Dollar, who at the time, all three of them ran it. They called me up and they said, "Listen, we want to induct you next year." That was in 2018. Then Morgan Dollar was no longer with the company. Morgan, feel better. I know you have some heart issues going on, and he's on the mend in the Carolinas. And I just want to wish him a blessings from God and good health. Brian Blair and Carl Lauer, and they actually presented me with an achievement award from Men's Wrestling for 2019 and a career retrospective. They did a nice video for me, and I had the blessings of having Jim Ross MC it, and Jim Ross was just unbelievably gracious and everything, kind to me and everything about it, and it was an honor to be up there. I came to Jim beforehand. I said, "Jim, I'm so nervous," and he said to me, JR said to me, he goes, "Kid," he goes, "just make sure," he goes, "it's like a match. You go over there, get out there, tell the story, take it home." And that was it. And that's exactly. Kevin Sullivan inducted me and gave a hell of a speech, and and it was, and then I went up there and I had a speech, and it's crazy because I'm looking out in the crowd, and there's Sergeant Slaughter, Gerald Briscoe,
Wow.
Nick Al, the Blue Meanie, John Arizzi, Brian Blair, anybody and anybody were out there.
Sure.
It was just unbelievable. I can't even remember the Barbarian Haku. It was just incredible. Brodus Clay, Tyrus, and it was a great thing. Dory, but the biggest thing to me was that I was on the same night. I was there not inducted, but given an honor the same night that Dory Funk Jr. got.
I think we've lost your audio there, Andrew.
Up.
Oh, we got you now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But
the
biggest honor, I was honored the same night that Dory Funk Jr. got his Lifetime Achievement Award into the Cauliflower Alley Hall of Fame. He was just Dory Funk Jr. is a legend in the business, and it's just great to see him out there and to be there. Mark Henry also got an award too, so
amazing.
To be there with Mark Henry too, great. It was unbelievable.
Such an honor, such a privilege. Now, I want to touch on some of the amazing people that you've been in the ring with over the years. I've got a little bit of a list here, so bear with us.
Okay.
Recent Hall of Famers such as Big Van Vader, the Steiners, the Barbarian, Tommy Dreamer, Tony Atlas, Superfly Jimmy Snuka, Jim Duggan, Tito Santana, Greg Valentine, Demolition, the Boogeyman, and so many more that you've been in the ring with, shared the ring with over the years. Have you got any fun or memorable stories from being in the ring with any of those amazing legends of the business?
Well, Billy Eadie, Demolition Axe. I wrestled Demolition as a tag team. I wrestled Demolition in singles.
Yeah.
Billy Eadie, I was telling him the story. first time ever in my life, I was teaming with Nikolai Volkov against Demolition, and Billy Edie fish hooks me and tells me to smile for the audience, and I was like, that was, to me, that was funny. Wrestling against Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and Jim Duggan putting me in an armbar and plucking my armpit hairs, telling me I should have shaved. That was pretty funny. Big Van Vader. Vader was my tag team partner against the Steiners a couple of times, and more than a couple of times, and other people besides the Steiners. I teamed with Vader quite a few, but the first time I wrestled against Vader, he didn't know what to make of me, and he saw this big guy in the ring with him, and I guess he wanted to take liberties as Leon used to do. So Bull gave me a couple of shots in the ribs, and I gave him a couple back. I waffled him right back, and I had no problem. And he was light as a feather after that. And we had a great match, and he sold for me, which was amazing, and it was just unbelievable. I mean, I loved working against Vader. I loved working with him, and I think he was a great guy, and he wound up becoming a really good friend. He was very moody individual, but he was a great guy, and I think it was. I'm glad that he was honored in the Hall of Fame and everything. Yeah. Just Big Van Vader deserves it. He was just a tremendous athlete, one of the best big men in the business. That was great working with Vader. That was an honor.
100%.
I just recently worked Scott Steiner. About 3 weeks ago, I worked Scott Steiner in Ohio for big time wrestling, and that was a great match. I mean, Scotty, he still goes out there and still gets a pop like you wouldn't believe, and still throws a mean suplex. So
100%. He just can't quite get up for that Frankensteiner like he used to be able to.
Well, he doesn't need to. He walks out with the chainmail headpiece, and he gets a pop either way.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. As we start to wind down then, Andrew, looking over your 24, 25, coming up 26 years in the business, a legendary career in the business, and you've wrestled the great and the good throughout the world. Have you got any standout proud moments that you can kind of look back on and think, yeah, I did that, and I'm really, really kind of proud of that achievement? Any proud moments that you want to tell us about on the Wrestling with John's podcast?
I wrestled against Mario Baccara, who at the time was named Mo Sexy. We did a show in 2004. I won the East Coast heavyweight title the first time, and we did a bunch of stuff in that ring, and that Sergeant Slaughter came up to us in the cage match that we had. Sergeant Slaughter came up to me and said, "Kid, that was probably one of the best cage matches I've ever seen on the indie scene ever." He goes, He said that was right up there with all the ones he's seen anywhere else. I took a German suplex off I was literally trying to get on the top of the cage, and Mario stood on the top ropes and German suplexed me off.
Wow.
He did a superplex. I superplexed him off the top. I was on the cage. He was on the cage. I was on the top rope, superplex. I did a senton off the top rope. I did a senton off the top of the cage, and he did a frog splash off the top of the cage, putting me through a table.
Incredible.
And I still won the match. So it was a pretty cool match. That was the first time I ever dove off the top of the cage, and it wouldn't be the last. People started booking me in cage matches, and I started doing it everywhere. And,
it started a trend.
Yeah. My body's saying, "Fuck you! Don't ever think of that again." But that was one. The other one was at the Jimmy Snuka, I think it was his 68th birthday bash, and they put me and Crowbar in a tables, ladders, and chairs match, and thank God we never used any ladders, but it was a hardcore match with Crowbar, and I just remember a bunch of people coming up to me from the Honky Tonk Man to Mick Foley, who was there, and I just remember Bill Apter from Pro Wrestling Illustrated came up and said, "You guys stole the night. We stole the night." And I've had many matches with Crowbar since, and I think Crowbar is a guy he's one of the only people. I think he is the only wrestler to have wrestled in WWE, WCW, NWA, ECW, WCW. And now AEW and Impact, and he wrestled in Impact. So he's one of the few guys, and I think Chris Ford, Crowbar, I think he's just the greatest pro wrestler. He is timeless, like he calls himself now, and he is just tremendous. And I think he's one of the best of the best. And it's always been, to me, he's been my favorite opponent my whole career. So
100%. Let's have a look at some of your bookings coming up over the next few months. Then I think you might mention this one where you've got a match against Jerry Saggs at Wrestle Daytona, and that is on the 24th of April. So in less than a couple of weeks' time. Now, Championship Wrestling of Florida. Now, you sent me this graphic. Obviously, another company that's very close to your heart. I know you mentioned them earlier.
Yep, Championship Wrestling from Florida. Well, we have a couple of dates lined up for May, June, and July. We haven't they haven't really ironed it out. I'm helping. I'm one of the bookers helping for it, working with it, and myself and Kevin Sullivan and Jeff Weaver we're the guys who are really putting it together. Jeff is a great guy. He's keeping things real, and we're trying to really get some good talent in there, run some good shows, and that's one of the things that's in the mix. I'm going to be appearing alongside Kevin Sullivan at the Chiller Theater Expo on the end of April into May 1st. I think to May 2nd. I think it is the 30th, April 1st, and April 30th and May 1st and May 2nd at Chiller Theater Expo in Parsippany, New Jersey at the Hilton. And I got so many other dates involved. I don't have
Not forgetting this one here, the 80s Wrestling Con that you mentioned earlier. That's going to be a great event on the 7th of May. And of course, hopefully this still goes ahead in Romania for RPW. And then this is where I'm going to see you again, live in action, once again at the Cheltenham Town Hall over here in the UK. Yourself and Mil Mortez going up against two UK legends in James Anderson and Joel Redmond. So a busy couple of months for you, my friend. You're going to be as busy as they come. So like I say, you're still amazingly active in the acting game, in the wrestling game, traveling all over the world. So like I say, you're as busy as ever.
Yeah, I don't even have all the list. I have everything written down in my phone, which I'm using right now for this podcast. So I can't really tell you, but I got dates. I'm going to show up at an East Coast Pro Wrestling show this Friday, and a bunch of other shows coming up on the 14th, the 15th, and then I know I'm booked through the whole month pretty much. I'm booked. I just don't remember where.
So, incredible.
I'm the kind of my age now. I have one of my daughters points to me and says, "This is where you got to be. Go, shoot, get out."
She's your unofficial manager, keeping you organised. But it's been amazing talking to you. But before we let you go, I don't know how active you are on social media, or if you've got any socials you want to plug at the end of this podcast. But if any of my listeners, any of my fans, or want to get in touch with you, find out more about Andrew Anderson, where can they do so?
They can get in touch with me through Twitter at Drew the Wrestler on Twitter, DREW the Wrestler, on Instagram, but I don't really tweet that much. They can get a hold of me at Andrew the Reinforcer, Andrew the Reinforcer, or the Reinforcer Andrew Anderson on Instagram, and then there's the Reinforcer Andrew Anderson Facebook fan page, and then there's the Andrew Anderson fan page. And then there's my personal fan page, which is just Andrew Anderson. So,
and not forgetting your amazing YouTube channel, which I think has got some incredible matches on there with some legends of the business.
It's being built slowly but surely. We're building it slowly but surely. A good friend of mine, a young wrestler who I took under my wing, Tim Theory, Tim Warner, he's helping me do all my work. So shout out to Tim for helping me. A shout out to some of the great promoters that I worked with over the years. Like Gino Caruso, Tommy Fierro, Tom Lance, and I've worked with a lot of great guys over the years, and I just want to give them all a shout out that they that I worked with them a lot. Of course, Jeff Weaver and Sean Hardy, and it's just Dino Biello, a bunch of other guys. I just can't even name everybody, but there are a lot of people out there keep me active, keep me going, keep me moving. Mustang Mike and everybody with Gulf State Wrestling, and it's been a great career, and hopefully we'll see things just keep going, keep rolling around in 2022 to 2023, and on. As long as like my kid says to me, my daughter says to me, she said, "Dad, how long are you gonna wrestle for?" And I'm gonna say, as long as I look good in my underwear.
Oh, 100%. And I know that when you came over here to Cheltenham in February, you made a lot of new fans and a lot of new friends as well. If you've got a message for the UK audience and for the guys that are thinking about coming to see you again at Cheltenham in June, but are on the fence about whether to go or not, give them a bit of a sell as to why they should, and a little bit of a message to UK fans.
Well, this is my message. I got to tell you, I met quite a few UK fans that saw me at Cheltenham at the at WrestleCon. It was
Really
every time around somebody came up. That must have happened about 5 or 6 times. Five or six people were in Cheltenham. They came to WrestleCon in Dallas, which was pretty amazing. My message to the UK fans, man, listen, you guys are some of the best wrestling fans on the planet, and I really want to thank you as a heel wrestler that you still accepted me into your heart, and you guys love to hate me or hate to love me. I don't know which one it is, but you know what? The bottom line is this: I always go out and give 100% of myself to you, the fans, and and even to a guy like Matt Jarrett, even though he's a chicken shit and is afraid to meet me in the ring. That's okay. We'll meet. We'll run into each other. Maybe in an airport. Maybe in on a lorry or somewhere, or a car service somewhere, and we'll see who exits the vehicle.
Awesome. Andrew Anderson, the Reinforcer, it's been awesome speaking to you for the last 60 minutes. I want to thank you so much for your time, and thank you for coming on the show.
Listen to me. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you've done for me, and helping me branch out to more UK fans. And like I said, the UK is becoming my new home, and I love it. I love being there. I love wrestling there, and I love the people. I love the fans, and I love the food.
Oh, 100%. And we can't wait to see you again at WPW in June. So thank you very much, my friend.
And thank you, my man, for having me.
We'll take care.